Hello everyone, my name is Dominic Armagno and I'm a current M3 here at UKCOM. And basically I was asked to give you guys a brief review on what a retrospective chart review is. I know that when I first came into medical school, I knew what research was and I had done a little in undergrad, but I didn't understand what medical student research looked like. And a retrospective chart review is one really good way for you to get research experience without committing a ton of time. So the golden question is, what is a retrospective chart review? And essentially there are four major buckets that goes into doing this project. And we'll go through all of these as we go along in this presentation. But essentially from a high level, you start with a clinical question. You collect patient data here from UK, and then you'll analyze that data, do statistics on it, etc. And then you do what we call the 3 Ps, which is a poster presentation, a podium presentation, and finally a publication. So I think you guys will get more information on this in your research course on how to find a good mentor, but getting a really good mentor is probably the most crucial part of starting a project like this, or any project, whether it's a retrospective chart review or any other kind of medical student project. And what you're really looking for in a good mentor is someone who is able to dedicate at least a little bit of time to you and help tend to your needs, whether it's based on the research you're doing or any kind of like medical student question that you might have. You're going to run into so many obstacles as you go throughout med school, and it's always good to have someone in your corner that's there to support you. So the first step in a retrospective chart review is formulating a question. It is crucially important that you research something that you are interested in, not necessarily what your mentor is interested in. And you don't have to produce the entire clinical question on your own. Your mentor should guide you through getting the actual clinical question, but the question itself should be based on something that you enjoy. And if you end up researching something and spending months on a research project that you really aren't interested in, when you talk about these projects in your residency interviews, they are going to be able to tell that you didn't actually like what you were researching and you were just trying to do it to get a research experience, which does not look great. So once you have a topic and maybe a resemblance of a question, what are the next steps? So I would recommend, even if your mentor doesn't ask you to do this, do a deep dive in the literature on what the disease is that you're looking at. So for me, I was interested in atrial fib, and I did a ton of research looking at the demographics, looking at the diagnosis, the different treatments. Do a super deep dive into that specific thing and then present it to your mentor and just talk to them about what the disease is so that you can gain a better understanding of it. And make sure you use tools like PubMed and Google Scholar to find this information. I would probably at this point start to ditch search engines, as they won't provide you the most up-to-date information that you're looking for. And once you get a grasp of what your disease is and kind of the pathology behind it, then you can focus your search on your clinical question and see what literature is currently out there that's looking at what you're specifically doing. And as you go along, make sure to catalog the references that you're collecting, because those can be useful when you write your publication later on. So once you get your clinical question and have done a little bit of surface level research on your topic, the next step is to get IRB approval. If you're not aware of what this is, if you use identified patient data with their actual names and medical information, you have to get approval before you can use that data. So your mentor should have an idea of how to submit and gain IRB approval and should have experience with it in the past. But if they don't, that's okay. You definitely should look into the people who work at the IRB office at UK and just ask them what are the steps I need to take to get approval. And really the biggest time constraint is doing the training in order to be on an IRB. There are different trainings like HIPAA and stuff like that in order to be named on the project. And this process should take probably about a month to complete. After you get IRB approval, the next step is to finally collect your data. And luckily for you, you are not expected to collect any of the data on your own. There is a service called CCTS here at UK, and they are there to help you get all of the patient data that you were looking for. But the biggest thing is, before contacting CCTS, you should know exactly what data you need in order to come to the conclusions that your project is looking for. There are resources and documents that you will need to fill out to tell them specifically what you're looking for and what you need to find. And this process overall should take about 2 months. Once you get your data from CCTS, I guarantee that you're going to be overwhelmed. For me, they gave me 5 or even more Excel sheets, and some of them had over 1 million data points on them. So your head is going to be spinning as soon as you get all of your data, and that's completely fine. Now, the biggest thing is that it's not your mentor's responsibility to help you comb through your data and do the data analysis. They might not even know how the Excel sheets work. I would recommend the best way to approach this is to start by talking to the person at CCTS who pulled your data, meet with them on Zoom for about 30 minutes and just talk to them about what each of the Excel sheets they provide mean and what to glean from a surface level of the data they collected. So in the patient data Excel sheets that you'll get from CCTS, next to each patient's name, there will be these unique medical identifying numbers called an MRN that you can input into Epic to gain further information on the specific patient. This can be really good just to verify if the data is corroborating with the Excel sheets that you have. And in order to use Epic, you need to get Epic training. I would recommend reaching out to Ashley Hamilton for more information. She'll be able to point you to the exact person you need to email and to do the specific trainings. From what I remember, the trainings didn't take very long. However, since it's a new thing, it was definitely a new thing for me, it can be a little bit of a learning curve to get up to speed with Epic. So in case if you were curious, this is what an example of an Excel sheet might look like from CCTS. Obviously, your project's probably going to be completely different, so it may not look exactly like this, but as you can imagine, there can be up to 30 or 40 different columns depending on how much data you're collecting, and then each row represents a patient. So once you get a better understanding of what the individual Excel sheets are telling you from the folks at CCTS, the next part is manipulating your data and filtering it and sorting it in a way that makes sense to you so that you can calculate the different things you were looking for to make your conclusions. Obviously, if you don't have a lot of experience with Excel, this can be very difficult because, as I mentioned, there could be up to 1 million data points in a single Excel sheet. So for me, I used AI and tools like ChatGPT to help me make the Excel formulas in order to get my data in the right place. What's really nice about using AI is that you can ask it in a way that's just plain jargon, like, I want to organize, I have 20 rows and 30 columns, I'm trying to filter this data in this way, can you write a formula? And then if it doesn't work out, you can always say, that didn't work, I'm trying to do this, and it'll be able to adjust the formula, and you just plug and chug, and then eventually you get it to a place that makes sense to you. The biggest thing is never put patient data into AI resources. This is 100% a HIPAA violation, so always be careful with your patient data and know that you've been entrusted to hold that data and keep it private. So the final step that you'll have with the actual data itself is doing data analysis. This is basically using statistics to back up the claims that you're making with your data. And your mentor should know someone who can help with statistics. So definitely lean on them to get more information on that. However, if you are experienced in data analysis and using things like Minitab, definitely you can do the data analysis on your own. Once you're finally done with the data, the next step is to write an abstract. If you don't have experience with writing an abstract from undergrad or prior experiences, You can see the different sections that you'll write about, but it's really a short one-page summary of your data and your findings. And as I've already mentioned a bunch of times, your mentor should be very involved in this process and help you formulate the abstract. What I recommend is writing a rough draft of it, sending it to them and seeing what they say. And then once they give some edits, meet with them and talk about it for a little bit. And what's nice is at this point, you don't necessarily need any data tables or figures. Most of the time when you're submitting an abstract somewhere, the data tables and figures will take up valuable space that you can use for writing. So if you don't have anything like that at this time, that's completely okay. So really what you're getting out of a retrospective chart review are 3 major research experiences. First being a poster presentation, then a podium presentation, and finally a publication. In the next few slides, we're going to go over what all 3 of these things are, but keep in mind that each of these count as 1 research experience on your residency resume. So essentially for 1 project, you can get up to 3 or even more research experiences, which is really nice. So as I mentioned, the first of the 3 Ps is a poster presentation. Essentially what I recommend you do is find a local conference or a meeting and submit your abstract and apply for poster presentation. Your mentor should be able to help you in finding a place to apply. And the way that these things work is it'll be like you'll be in a row with like 20 other research posters. People will walk around and you give a 2 to 3 minute presentation to them on what your research is. And then after that, you can answer, a couple questions, they'll move on, and then you'll talk to some more people. UK has plenty of opportunities, especially in the fall and the spring, for research poster presentations. So definitely take advantage of this. And I recommend you don't travel very far for a poster presentation. I think that the podium is a little bit more of a higher impact, so you don't want to spend a lot of money or travel very far in order to do this step. So as I mentioned, now it's time to talk about how to make a poster. Luckily, there are people at UK and UK College of Medicine who are there to help us make research posters. And for me, what worked best was getting a template from them and using that template, taking out the information that was in there and plugging in my stuff. And that kind of saved me from having to worry about all the formatting and, the certain dimensions that are needed in order to print. If your mentor doesn't have a person to go to, because sometimes they will have a person to refer you to, I would recommend going to this website and getting more information on that. So once you've completed your poster presentation, you should set your sights on a podium presentation. Similar to the poster, you will just need to submit an abstract to be considered for this, most likely. This is a little bit more involved though. Compared to the poster, this will be about a 10-minute presentation. And it will be in front of a larger group or the entire conference, depending on where you go. And then afterwards, there will be about a couple of minutes for questions. And for this, you will need to prepare a slideshow, but if you already have a poster with a bunch of information on it, that should be pretty easy to transfer over and add a little bit. For this, I would definitely expect to travel and apply to conferences that relate to your area of research. The bigger, the better in terms of the type of conference that you're looking for, and your mentor should definitely be a great help in finding these places, but you can do your own research as well. And thankfully, UKCOM does offer up to $500 for travel and conference expenses. I will say be kind of prepared to put in a little bit of your own money, because some of the conference fees themselves can be up to like $600. So you might be spending a little bit of money traveling and then also for hotel. So once you complete your poster presentation and your podium presentation, the next thing you should look to do and complete is a publication. This is by far the most important research experience you can get out of a retrospective chart review. A lot of the times when you get accepted to do a podium presentation, they will also offer submissions for manuscripts, which is also called a publication. your mentor should be a huge help and very integral in finding the right place to apply, because you can only submit to one publication for that project. You can't like submit to 7 different publications and hope that you get one. So it's very important that you choose wisely and you kind of match up, like take a step back and realize, okay, what is like the impact of my paper and how likely is it to get into X, Y, or Z journal? And your mentor should have a good idea of what that kind of looks like. So after you complete your 3 Ps, you're basically done with that project. But there are many avenues that you can take after you're completed. As you went along, if you ever found another research question with that same data that wasn't what you were currently researching, that could be another project that you can pursue and possibly get more of the 3 Ps. So you can either double or triple or quadruple the 3 Ps from just one data set. If you do decide to stop pursuing research with this mentor, that's completely fine as well. But I would definitely advise staying in contact with them, maintaining a good relationship. As I mentioned, they should be more than just a research mentor. They should be a clinical coach for you. So they can definitely be very helpful for you along the way. And since you worked so closely with them and met with them at least, twice or 3 times a month, and they kind of saw you grow as you went along as a medical student, definitely consider a possible letter of recommendation in the future, especially if they're in the specialty that you're trying to apply for. So this concludes the review on the retrospective chart review. Thank you for taking time to listen. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. My email is right here. And good luck with medical school and in your future research.